This is my certification sheet. This is my separation report. As you can kind of get the gist of it, I'm kind of a mechanic or a technician, whatever we call it nowadays. And Toyota was my last employer. So I think in April, somewhere around April of 21, I got hired at Toyota. And I got hired as a lube technician. And obviously, like any lube technician, at least in my dealership, because from the program I was in at Citrus College, I heard a lot of different experiences from everyone. So this is coming from me personally. Just realized something. Anyways, so this is based off of my experience from my dealership, and I am in SoCal, and I did attend the T10 program at Citrus College. So you can kind of pick and choose which dealership you guys think I came from. But like I said, many of the experiences were similar. Just the tasks at hand were different. One of my homies at the other dealerships did tell me that they were really restricted on what they allowed him to do, how he was paid, and how far up he'd be able to move up. So that's just a little perspective of the differences that go on between each and every dealership. So I was there roughly a year and a half, and I can go into detail on my last day and what happened or how it went down. Let me know if y'all want to hear that in the comment section down below. I do greatly appreciate the support. And ultimately, I want to put this out there just because I see a lot of the younger generation wanting to be a tech, get into the field. Working on cars and liking cars are two different things. And if any of y'all can relate or want to share your side of the story, like mine, comment down below. With that said, story time. So this is just a separation report, and I didn't notice until right now. It says my start date was on 4/23 of 21, and I left on 7/18 of 2023. And my pay rate right here was... Next video. So long story short, about before I got into actual Toyota or the Toyota dealership, I started off at a program called T10 out in Citrus College. And I was in the program for roughly 4 or 5 months, maybe, right before I got hired. And so fast forward to then, I remember my first day so clearly. Because one thing about school is they'll teach you everything you need to know, but they won't teach you anything about it, what it's like in the real world. And prior to that, I had no real shop experience, so I didn't really know what to expect. But long story short, I showed up to my first day with a simple tool bag that honestly only really contained like what? Sockets, ratchets, pliers, and an impact really. And so there I go with my little tool bag, completely unprepared. At the time, this toolbox right here didn't exist. So at this specific dealership that I was at, we were strictly only in charge of quick service oil change, tire rotations, a single tire repair or tire swap, both engine and cabin filters, and wipers. And obviously a multi-point inspection with every vehicle, but that was standard anyways. When I was in school, my schedule would range from 2 to 3 days out of the week. And when I was ultimately full-time, it was 5 days out of the week. The dealership was never open Sunday, and I had 1 day off between the week other than my Sunday. I did work with a team of 10 to 12. And so I kind of wasn't liked by many in the lube rack, is what we'd call it. Simply because I had a lot of privileges and liberty on changing my schedule, the time I'd be able to go in, and how I was seen by the managers, my shift lead, and my foreman, all because of this luxury of going to T10. And like I mentioned, from the time I was in school, it was really easy just because I had the liberty of choosing my days and hours in a sense. Even though I'd still put in the full 8 hours a day, I was able to say, you know what, I need to come in at 7 so I can go to school and be there by, I don't know, like let's say 5:30. Or you know what, I get out of school late on Tuesday, so Wednesdays can I please go in at 9, I believe was the latest. And with the distribution of lube techs throughout the day, 2 of us were going in the morning at 7, another 2 or 3 would come at 8, and the rest would come in at 9. And even though I said 8-hour shifts earlier, they were really 9, but we had an hour lunch. And so the task I had mentioned before was strictly all I ever really did. So every once in a while, I would be allowed to do something different. And by do something different, I mean the shift lead or the foreman would pull me off to the side, and we would call it a side quest. And in terms of overall tasks, that was as interesting as my day got. And there was nothing much really out of the ordinary that I would do, other than, like I mentioned earlier, blades, filters, oil change, and tire rotations. Anyway, my phone ran out of storage. I had to restart it. Which also reminds me, let me know if you prefer the GoPro or just my iPhone camera. The coworkers or friends that you would make at the dealership was dependent on how you carried yourself. If you carried yourself with ego and that you pretend to know it all, you would be hated by everyone. And being in the lube rack, we were basically shop puppets, which is the one experience that all of us really did have in common, was that we were just used for the free labor. And by free labor, I mean labor that wasn't flagged, because we were paid by the hour regardless. When the techs would ask me to do something, I would go ahead and do my best to try to do the favor for them. So like I mentioned earlier, we were a team system. At most, we'd have 4 to 5 bays on a Saturday and maybe 3 to 4 on a Friday. 1 would be doing the oil change and 2 would be knocking off the tire rotation. But in terms of the coworkers I strictly worked with on a day-to-day basis, everyone was cool. It was just a bunch of guys. And I mentioned like that because it's a rarity to have a girl as a lube tech or as a tech in general. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned this before. My phone had run out of storage. But my shift leader would have a major role in how the day played out, because if he showed up in a mood, he'd put all of us in a mood and it just destroyed everything. There were times where me and him bumped heads in terms of my scheduling, in terms of the times we should take a lunch, because ultimately at the end of the day, he did what he wanted. Again, working at the dealership I did work at, I want to say I had it right in the middle between everyone else. Overall, to sum everything up, my experience at Toyota as a lube tech was honestly a high C+ to a low B- on a regular basis. But when I was paired up with someone who knew how to work and the managers weren't in their moods, neither was my shift lead, I would say it was a solid B+. And that's strictly on being a lube tech. Scratch the B+, I remember how much I was being paid at the time. Keep it a solid B. But there's a bunch of factors, and I can go on and on about this. Let me know in the comments below if you want to see more of these. But once again, I appreciate for anyone who did tune in and made it to the end of this video. And with that said, I'll catch you on the next one.